Well, good afternoon. My name is John Hendren, and I'm with Educators Rising, PDK International. We're so glad that you could join us this afternoon. We're going to be highlighting today one of the resources that we offer those who are a part of our CTSO as teacher leaders, which are the interactive guidebooks that students would use as part of our program. Um, my special guest with us this afternoon is Debbie Weaver Ballo, who is our National Implementation Manager for Educators Rising. But before we let her talk about interactive guidebooks, I want to talk about something that's very important to me as a former educator, and that's student engagement. I worked for many years as an ed tech leader in my role in a school district in Virginia where I live. We were focused on high levels of student engagement and deeper learning, and my role in that was to figure out, how technology could contribute to the deeper learning. Um, if you can imagine, when we started our one-to-one program, handing out laptops and iPads to students, that got them very engaged. But if you've been through that journey, that doesn't always last. And when we talk about student engagement, if it's something that's passionate in your realm as an educator, we can look at it across multiple dimensions. The one there in the middle, the cognitive aspect of student engagement, some students come to us in our classes because and they're engaged because they really love the subject. And for me, my subject that I was not so engaged with was math. It was a little scary for me, especially as we got into upper levels of math, honors math, when I went through my secondary experience. But you know what helped make that work for me, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well as subjects that maybe weren't your favorite, was that emotional connection, right? Having that caring adult that even if the subject matter was a little bit scary, they helped you get through it. And having that caring person in your life through school, it's one of the reasons why many of the students we talk to in Educators Rising uh, turn to teaching or are curious about a potential career in education because they had that educator in their lives that created that emotional experience for them. And that's one of the reasons they love coming to school because they knew that person was going to be there. The third aspect is the one on the left, the behavioral component to student engagement. And I think our administrators often look at this because when they come in our classrooms, if they observe a teacher teaching, they are going to be looking for those signs. Are students engaging, or is it going to be leading to student achievement? So we can think of it across these three components or elements, if you will. So engagement drives learning. We know that. And I pulled out some statistics to share with you, and these are pretty new. There was a study done by Discovery Education. You may well know them as a vendor of content in your schools. 93% of educators and 99% of the superintendents done in their study said that student engagement is a great predictor towards student success or student achievement. 92% of students said that when their teachers have engaging lessons, it makes their school experience more enjoyable. Okay, that's good to know, right? And then 83% of students said there were not enough opportunities to exercise their curiosity at school. And I know as being a teacher, I didn't always feel I had the ultimate control of that, especially when I was being told what to teach. But that's really great information to have in your back pocket when you think about engagement. And I would encourage you, we can look at national statistics. If you're not measuring engagement in your district, I would encourage your school administrators to do something along those lines so you can actually work off of data from your own students. So what can we do? Number one is to prioritize positive adult to student relationships. That goes a long way. And you can see there a 20-year longitudinal study. and providing that connectedness to school was really important. Limiting passive lecture time. Um, I probably am the odd one out. I actually enjoy a good lecture, but many of our students are not conditioned to sitting for long periods of time and listening. And I know as educators, you know that as well. And then utilizing, interactive strategies and things like project-based learning. Project-based learning, and I've done a lot of that and encouraged a lot of teachers to do it. It does take a little bit of planning time. It takes a while to implement till you feel comfortable with it, but it does go a long way. And in the follow-up email that we'll send everybody who's joined our webinar today, I have some links that you can check out in alignment with this if you're interested in learning more. Um, we also have students who report that they're bored at school. And I'm not saying this is the entire day, but obviously keeping kids engaged for an entire school day is a challenge at any grade level. But in a study of 81,000 high schoolers, they said that the content wasn't interesting to them. And again, if we are only deciding, making curricular decisions ourselves as adults and not including students, we're liable not to change that number considerably. And 39% of students in the same study said that the content they didn't feel was relevant to them. And I know as a teacher, I was always trying to point out why they needed to know certain things, especially in the context of a future career. So what can we do? Well, obviously challenging students appropriately with relevant content, things they think that whether they think they need it or not, helping to see those connections is really important. Regularly getting student feedback. We can do that in a very systematic way. I remember our school district did an annual survey, but then there's also the informal ways that you as a teacher can create feedback loops within your classroom to learn how students are feeling. Maybe you felt a lesson wasn't so great, it didn't go so well. You can, of course, ask your students, well, what could we do to make this a better experience for you? So I want to pivot and tell you about our organization because one of the things that Debbie and I get to experience each year at our national conference is really energize and engage students. And it's really satisfying after being in many school experiences ourselves to see such a group of students who are energized and excited about the potential of becoming future educators. Our theme this year, and this was student chosen, is to teach with purpose and lead with passion. And if you're not familiar with Educators Rising, I'll tell you, give you the quick 1 minute highlight. We got started as the Future Teachers of America back long before I was born, 1937. The NEA founded and started to spread in schools across the country. And just this past year in 2025, we celebrate our 10th year as Educators Rising. PDK International, our parent organization, has been in the service of professional educators since 1906. And so we have a long tradition of being an organization that educators would join to develop their leadership potential, to be connected with research and to service. And 10 years ago, after acquiring the Future Educators Association, we pivoted, invested in it, and called it Educators Rising. Today, I'm happy to announce it's our first webinar. We can announce that we're now up to 40 state and regional affiliations. That means that in those locations, students have an experience with events, and we have over 25,000 student members with chapters in high schools, middle schools, and on college campuses. And our purpose is to help cultivate the interest and the skill sets required to enter any number of education-based careers. And of course, many of our students are interested in teaching and leading in the classroom. So we are a national movement. And I'll just say that I got a great dose of what we do. This past weekend, I was fortunate to visit the Virginia Educators Rising Conference. It's a one-day event that was held here. Got to meet students all over my state where I live, including on the stage there, you can see we invited some college students and some educators to answer questions of our high schoolers about, what is it like to go through the next step? What is it like to become an educator? And this was a great panel session where students could get the skinny on what it's like to become an educator. So how do we work? We like to operate off what we call the five C's. We know that if you've been in education for very long, you've probably talked about C's like communication and collaboration. Our five C's are chapters, curriculum, conference, community, and competitions. As a CTSO or Career and Technical Student Organization, we have events where students come and compete in competitions that are related to education, like lesson planning or developing a children's book. One of the most emotional and fun competitions to witness. It's one of our few competitions you can actually, if you're at our event, you can be in the peanut gallery and watch, is the Ed Rising moment. And these are some really emotional stories about how students have come to answer the call to become an educator. Um, these five components work together to not only support students in their progression of skills to become a future teacher, but they also power our program in your community to be a grow your own solution. We know that many districts are struggling to find highly qualified educators to fill classrooms. And as a grow your own solution, we work with districts so that they have a healthy teacher pipeline. You're developing future teachers based on the students that are in your school now. They get turned on to teaching. You maintain a relationship with them as they go to college. They hopefully come back to your district and do their student teaching. And then hopefully you've offered some incentive to them to either get interviewed or be hired in your district. And some of our students do that at the paraprofessional level. Others do it as teachers. And then, of course, we have other students who are interested in becoming speech pathologists, school nurses, librarians, the full gamut that you're fully aware of. One of the resources that we offer that's optional, but for many districts, this is a really important one as a foundational element, and that's good curriculum. We worked tirelessly with a number of national partners to develop a strong curriculum. We're now in our third iteration of that, which just came out last year. The curriculum has the scope and sequence that you can see on the screen. You don't have to follow that. You're going to want to, obviously, if you're running a full education and training pathway in your district, you're going to want to follow your state CTE guidelines. But we have worked with many folks across the country to help them see how our curriculum will align to those requirements in states. And when we talk about curriculum, I should be clear that yes, you're getting the scope and sequence, but you're also getting the lesson materials to use as a teacher leader. Having the curriculum would be great, but then developing your own individualized lessons, that would be daunting if you're just starting a program and you were selected as the teacher leader. So this resource is basically a fully loaded 2-year curriculum with lessons that you can deliver to your students. It comes in PowerPoint format, so it's very editable and usable, either if you want to project in your classroom, whether you want to use it as part of your digital solutions with an LMS or through an interactive whiteboard, could also be utilized that way. The other thing that you get, and this comes at no extra cost, are the resources you get as a chapter in your school. Like many other CTSOs, we work off a chapter model. And if you are a teacher leader, you get a whole bevy of resources through our membership portal so that you can stand up a program quickly. You can learn all about the things like fundraising if you want to take your kids to one of the competitions I mentioned. But we fully support you with not only training and support if you adopt our curriculum, but as a teacher leader, you also get access to webinars, recordings of those webinars, and obviously documentation to run a chapter in your school. The last thing I'll mention is, again, the excitement of the conferences and competitions. We know as a CTSO, Sometimes you attract students because they get to go on this really cool trip and see a part of the world they've never been to before. This is an opportunity to really help them decide, is this the is this the career choice for me? Um, you'll also do that at the local level within your community and your school, because we don't think the greatest way to do this is just through coursework, but through a practical experience and having the opportunity to work with younger students in your district to actually practice teaching and see how that fits with you. For students who haven't made up their mind, many of them will go through a paraprofessional route. They'll become certified paraprofessionals depending on the laws in your state. For those that use the Parapro, I'll just mention you can get a discount if you purchase those test codes through us. We have an agreement with ETS, but that gives students the opportunity to actually try out being, a classroom assistant, see if they like that. And we have many students who are seeking their teaching credentials while also working as a paraprofessional. Well, without any further ado, I'm really excited to introduce Debbie. Debbie's going to talk a little bit more about curriculum, but then talk about this excellent resource that we've developed. This is only about a year and a half old, I think, Debbie, but I want them all to learn about the incredible resource we have with our interactive guidebooks designed for students.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so excited to get to share this with you all today. And I want to also thank you, John, for the the excitement I get every time I see the pictures from conference. Like it's coming up in a few months. Our team is working really hard to get it ready to be, again, it outdoes itself year after year after year. If you haven't thought about it, I know Lisa put this also in the chat. Come to conference and experience and whether you can bring your kids or not, like it's such an experience. But we are here to talk about the interactive student notebooks. And I love that you started out talking with us about student engagement because really, again, this piece is so critical for making sure that the students do have an opportunity to really engage with this content. So if you're a curriculum user, which is my day job, I get to work with the teacher leaders across the country who are Educators Rising chapter leaders, but who also run pathway courses and are using our curriculum as either a supplement to curriculum that is either required by their state or maybe by a dual enrollment, a dual credit program that they're running through the universities, or it is their singular curriculum that they're using for this program. So whether you use it again as a supplement or as like your core program, we have as teachers tell me all the time, like, wow, there's like way more resources than I could ever imagine being able to use in a year. Again, we've got a design work can be used for 2 years, but we've seen teacher leaders be able to use these same curriculum resources over a 4 year program. So, I mean, it really can be what you need it to be. But specifically talking about the student interactive guidebooks, this is where we get to see how the students get to put their hands into the mix, right? So the great Harry Wong, he passed away a few years ago, but he always said, whoever's doing all the work is doing all the learning. And we want to make sure that we as the teachers are not just doing all of the talking and doing and writing on the board and all of those sort of things. We want to make sure our students are doing the work and that they're getting to think through things and be able to like express the outcomes that they have of the learning experience. So if we can always keep in mind that our North Star as teacher leaders is that we want to let the students do the work, then we want to make sure that we look for ways to engage them. Fortunately, for our teacher leaders who are using our curriculum, in our curriculum slide notes, we actually include tips for the teacher of how they can use. So, like, this is the slide, but it'll say, like, we recommend that you distribute copies of this article to groups of rising educators to do a jigsaw activity. So then, as we're thinking through, like, okay, so now we know we're going to do this engagement lesson, using this slide to do this lesson about reading through this article, but doing it as a jigsaw, because the article itself is like multifaceted. It has like 5 different myths. It has all this stuff. Not to put all of that on the child to read all of it together, but to actually then break it apart and say, this group is going to take myth one, this group's going to take myth two. So they each get a chance to read these different pieces. And of course, the best part, they get to practice being teachers because they get to then turnkey that back to each of the different groups. As you know, I don't have to tell all of you as experts only how jigsaws work, but that's kind of part of like the pizzazz for a pre-educator pathway program is showing them you all get to be the teachers of your particular assigned document. So along with this lesson, we have what is called this is the guided notes. So this is the precursor to what is now what we have as the interactive student notebooks. We had just this. And honestly, even some of our previous teachers are like, this is all we need. We just need to have like, here's the activity, and they're going to fill in these boxes, which these boxes can be filled in either digitally or you can print this and have it as like a piece of paper for them to write in. But we thought to ourselves, you know, we could probably do better. We could make it even more engaging. So then, as you're looking at activities, oh, actually, I'm sorry. This is to finish out the jigsaw so I can like get to the end of this thought. So with this particular activity, they would work through pulling together all of the pieces that they do from their assigned article. And then we start to get them to now take it next level. Now we're going to do a research activity. And again, as a jigsaw, we're going to have them work in pairs and have them come up with real world examples of how these different philosophies actually play out in the real world. And then we can do things to engage them, like get them to do the stand up, hand up, pair up. And these are all things, again, that are recommended in our curriculum lesson slides. So there is already engagement built into the lessons, regardless of whether you have them do like a written component. There are going to be opportunities for discussion, for getting up and moving around the room, for, again, really engaging with it. This is just kind of like a visual of that stand up, hand up, pair up, is that you have these two different groups and then they go and find each other, they pair up, and then they discuss the prompt. So again, this was like the original little guided notes, but look at how we have taken it next level. The students have given us amazing feedback to say, wow, I super love the interactive notebook now because going from a template like this, which was just sort of blah, kind of bland, it got the job done, but we really are always about like, how can we take things next level for our kids? And so now we have these activities that if they had to do a reading activity like the one that I just was mentioning to you, if they have to do a reading activity, they can like have these, more engaging, just visually it's more appealing, but also notice how we can even embed into this the link to get to the article. So even just the page itself has now even become more engaging because it has, okay, if they don't have to say, where's the article? What am I supposed to be reading? Where is it? It's like, remember, it's right there. It's linked into the page. And then this is an example of one of the projects that they're doing for, this is a mini unit planning lesson where they're learning about like how to build curriculum and how to roll out this curriculum over the course of a month. So like we give them these projects that they can then engage with. So think about it. If you're the teacher leader of this program and you're thinking, okay, what are all the different components that I need to have to make sure that my students are learning the best pedagogy? Well, we're going to make sure you have the pedagogy itself, or like teaching the instruction around it, but then also to apply it. And so we really want the students to always have this engagement of getting to actually work with it. So here's a little mini example of one of our backward design activities. It's in the student interactive guidebooks. It starts out with introducing some key terms about what backwards planning is, what SMART goals are, and what a where to lesson plan is, so they can always also refer back to that page as they're going through. Then as they start engaging with the different terms and things that they're learning throughout the lesson. So remember, this is just the student book that's going along. You've got slides, imagine, of like content that you're delivering whole class or in small group. And then they're getting to engage with this where they're going to actually now put things in order of from what they understand. How would I put this in order? Do I select the standards first? Do I choose the evidence of learning first? Do I write the instructional content first? Like, what do I do? So we've got this little activity where they have to put things in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 order, and then they also have a place for some additional notes. Then we do an activity with them where we want them to think about why backward planning is so important. And so in this particular maze activity, they're going to start from the beginning of the maze and try to see if they can make their way all the way to the end. They're going to talk about what challenges that this was and where there were some wrong turns and how long it took them. And they're actually going to be timed during this activity. So again, the slide like really goes into like how you're going to roll this out. Now the kids get to engage with it. Then they get to learn a little bit more about the different stages of backward planning. So obviously there are multi-stages. I just chose this one as stage 3 of they're going to keep their notes here. So as you're doing the lesson and you're working with them on the lesson, they are taking the notes. This particular stage talks about how to determine evidence of learning and how to share some examples of that. Then they'll get to actually work on the where to like the steps for a where to, like where are we going with this lesson. We need to be thinking about like the ultimate outcomes of what we want from this lesson, and that becomes our where to list. And if we can keep that always in mind, then building our lessons backwards from that really helps. Then we take them back to this maze and we say, all right, remember the maze we did? Maybe it was yesterday or maybe it was earlier in the day in the lesson. Let's actually try it from the bottom. What if we started at the exit and tried to work our way back to the beginning? And they find this really interesting how much easier it was actually to start at the bottom because they only sometimes have one way that they can go when they start at the bottom versus when they started at the top and it felt like, oh, wrong way, oops, oops. So this is a really great way to give them that aha moment of why doing things like with beginning with the end in mind is so important. We also have embedded into our interactive student guidebooks scenarios. We know that these are crucially and critically important for students to like think through if you are a teacher, and in this case, you are Miss James, and she is both a social studies teacher and a swim coach. And due to finances, the school state rules state that each student is responsible for their own transportation to and from sporting practices or events. But because of this, Miss James often drives students to practice because they may not have transportation of their own, and there is no bus. There's no like we don't have the finances for the bus. Well, we need to think about like what issues might arise from this situation. So in this interactive guidebook, there are going to be places for them. Remember, anytime you see these spaces, these can be, I'm in a slideshow right now, I can't show you, but they can actually type in these. So this would be able to capture all of their answers, and you'd be able to have, each of them have their own copy of this where it captures all their answers. This particular lesson came from our professionalism lesson about like the code of ethics. So you can see that we try to embed scenarios based on the competency that we're trying to teach. And in this case, we're going to get into like, okay, so if Miss James does this, what part of the model, code of ethics is she breaking, or can she, how does she manage that? Because obviously we do always want to put students first and give them great opportunities, but like how does she protect herself in those situations? Then this particular one goes on to several other scenarios of the professional code of ethics of what if you're friending a student on social media? Do you think that you should? Do you agree or disagree with this? What would be the reasons why it would be an okay reason to, friend a student on social media? When would be a bad idea for that to happen and why? Friending a parent on social media, giving your students your personal contact information. So these are all different scenarios that we work them through this lesson. And then this final one in professionalism is about a student who comes to you in confidence, tells you basically that they're being bullied online, getting some difficult text to deal with, but you haven't seen any changes in their behavior or anything at school. And you also haven't seen it for yourself. What do you do? How do you respond in the situation? So all of this is not to talk about like, oh, let's dive into the scenario. This is to show you the richness of this curriculum. We always want to make sure that it ties back to really taking the foundational knowledge that we're teaching through these different lessons, but then applying it. Let's think through with what you now know about the code of ethics. What should you do as a future educator? How would you handle this? Because this is the real stuff that we deal with. This is the real thing that educators have to know how to manage. And then this is the bottom half. So this was like the top half of the guided notes. The bottom half is that then they break it down into thinking about on a personal level, like their personal ethics, how would they manage this scenario versus their professional ethics versus school policy. And I think that this is another layer that we add that is always very, very important in this learning process is that you think about every stakeholder. You think about every different vantage point. How would your response as a teacher to this dilemma that you're maybe facing, how would it affect the school, the community, the student, the parents, your other students, yourself? So these are the different things that we always work in to our lessons. So when you're thinking about like, how do you engage students using the Ed Rising lessons and like, what are you doing now? How could having a resource like this really help in your classroom? So, knowing that you would have access to all of these different curriculum resources, but then also having the companion guides, like these student interactive workbooks. So, I kind of put that out. I know that Lisa's collecting some information in the chat of like do you see a benefit to this? Or, is it something that interests you and do you want more information about it? Because we would love to like show you around and let you play with it and, see it and kind of think through it a little bit more. But I can also tell you that what's great about being a part of this program as a curriculum user is you get access to all of us in the implementation department. We're, teachers, we're fresh out of the trenches, and we love to talk about ways that you can also use our resources to engage. We show you how to like break down, talk about gallery walks, look at different ways that we can do a lot of really engaging activities. How do we get the kids vertical? How do we get them up and moving with our curriculum? Could we do a this or that activity where we have them stand on this side of the room or that side of the room? So engagement, like John said earlier, is really key. And these are just a few of the different things that I've used in other trainings that I've run for our team to, and when I say team, I mean all of our teacher leaders who are using this to say, like, let's talk about how we can get our students really engaged with some of the content. The pencils up, pencils down, Sometimes if you're just working on a worksheet or filling in those interactive student notebooks, you could say, at this time, pencils up. And when I say go, I want you to only focus on filling in one of these different pieces of the pyramid and go. And then pencils down, let's see who's got it, So there's lots of really fun ways that you can make even the student interactive guidebooks, as awesome as they are, it still comes to you prepping a really high energy, engaging, uh, curiosity provoking lesson, like getting them engaged. So just wanted to let you know, like, again, we are so here for you. And, I don't know if I have just another minute or two, I mean, I can show them, John, like where this would be,
Sure,
like,
sure.
um, so again, when you get access, if you're wondering like, okay, so what's the real deal? So if you are currently not a curriculum user, when you get access to the curriculum, you will come over here and you'll see it says, here's our 25-28 curriculum. And then at the bottom of the page, it says year one or year two lessons and including clinical experiences resources. So if I go into year one lessons, notice the first thing, student guidebooks. It talks about how much we love them and how you have access to them. And then you'll notice here that if you have your PowerPoint, you have access to that very simplistic guided notes worksheet. So we still keep that. Some of our teachers actually really like just the simplicity of this one where again, students can just fill in, from this. Or the student interactive guidebook, same content, but look at the like, wow, it's really just pizzazzy and the students, you've got to zhuzh it up a little bit sometimes, keep their eyes excited about even diving into this. What I also even like about the way it's presented for students is that it captures some of the things that are included on the slides in a really nice way. So this again also becomes almost like a note-taking device. So this is where, again, if you're a curriculum user, you have access to these resources. Now, some of our lessons are they have little stars. These are like the core lessons, which will always include a guided notes worksheet and the student interactive workbook. The ones that are not considered core, it's not because we don't love them. We love, love, love the growth mindset lesson, but there are so many lessons to get through. There are actually 29 in year one. And for a lot of our teachers are like, we can't get through 29. Sometimes you're only meeting with your kids once a week. You're like, there's just no way I'm going to get through that many lessons. So we had to pick some like core lessons. And so all of the core lessons have all the things, right? So a 1 day and a 3 day PowerPoint, the student interactive workbooks, all of the goodies that are there. And so that you don't get like, oh, where would I even start? You certainly could do them in order, but we give you the scope and sequence so that you can think through, all right, this is what is recommended by Ed Rising. They say to start in unit one with, these particular lessons and what is also like the clinical experiences, what sort of assessments might go along with it and national activities. But you can decide which order you want these to be in. They're modular. You might say, I already have a curriculum that I have to use from my state, so where can I slide these in? Uh-oh, I'm going to do them out of order. Is that a problem? Nope. You can do them in any order that works for you. It's very customizable. So if you know that you're in what is this, March? Oh my gosh, how is it March 2026 already? But if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, Unit 2 has some cool stuff, but I'd really like to bounce down to, Unit 5, which is usually done more like in April and May, that's all right. You can do these in whatever order that you would like. You technically could even go into the year two stuff and grab some goodies from year two if you want. everything is modular. So this is just to give you a little bit of a taste. The last thing I want to give you a little bit of a taste for is we do have this brand new resource. So actually, if anyone's on this call listening who's like, I already have the curriculum, I am already in like the Cool Kids Club, and I've got all the things, and it's really exciting. But you're wondering, it's hard to keep up maybe with, remembering all the great things that we're rolling out. If you need some training, you need some refresher, we are launching what is called the Educators Rising Training Center. And it's going to have like a little curriculum in orientation that you can go into. So once you, I'm already in, so it should, oop, I need to get into me here. This is actually even so brand new to us that, here we go. So if I go into my orientation, here's my course. Oh, look, I'm going to do this live and I'm going to get myself stuck. I am in a stuck. Okay, I have a better way of getting into it. So, um, let's see if I can get down here. Here we go. So I'm going to go into looking at the student resources. Here we go. I'm in. Again, this is literally like launching this
view of the student resources that are available for you to use instructionally with your students.
So we give you little videos to like show you how to navigate around. How do you find these resources? If you're like, I can't remember what Debbie said about where I find the scope and sequence, guess what? We have a module for that.
Rising curriculum.
It's called How to Explore the Sample Scope and Sequence, and it even gives you a breakdown of how they are modular, how you can explore by unit. You can even use the little slideshow here to go through them. It's awesome. And so this is rolling out actually nationwide in the next month, actually. It comes out in April. So you guys will have access. What's really cool about it too is that you not only have access to all of the little tutorials that remind you like how to navigate our resources, how to get the most out of your curriculum that you've purchased, but you also get to look at like how to reflect and plan. Like, okay, how would I use this? And anything that goes here also can be feedback that provides us some guidance on like, oh, this person is stuck. We can reach out to you. We can help you. And that's one thing that, again, we're here for. So notice you'll have access to like welcome videos about like our history, our background, how we are studying the teacher shortage, what makes a chapter, what are the 5 C's, and what are your roles? What are your roles as a teacher leader? Down to how to use the curriculum, how to get into and exploring even clinical experiences, how to use the student resources. We have podcasts, we've got articles, we've got teaching channel videos, all of those things, National Boards Atlas, we cover all of it. And then we kind of wrap it up with like, what is the follow-up support that you would get from your SRC, which is your state regional coordinator, and from our Facebook communities and from our monthly group coaching calls. So I hope that this little sneak peek, I mean, I tell you, you didn't even know what little goodies, no one else has seen this. This is brand new. I mean, even I had to show you I had to learn myself how to click around on this and I built it. So it's really exciting. We're super proud of the support that we can offer. As part of you being with us, we're so proud and passionate about this work, and supporting you in supporting your kids is just what drives everything that we do every day. So were there any sort of questions that came in, John?
Yeah, Debbie, we will hang around here for a few more moments to see if questions do come in. A couple things I want to announce. Number one, I want to share a quote with you from Lindsay Jensen. Lindsay Jensen is our state coordinator in Illinois. And she said, when districts reach out for hiring, they want to find candidates who are in educators rising because they know that these students are much more established than the standard new educator. It speaks to the impact that we're having when you have a chapter in your school and those students are ready to enter the classroom, that they are well prepared. And you can see these resources that we've put together are part of the solution. I would say that if you become one of our teacher leaders, we are indebted to you for sharing the inspiration that brought you to the field. I will say that if you're not yet a teacher leader and you're on the fence or you're maybe thinking about starting a program, many of who become teacher leaders become reinvigorated as an educator because they are in that role of inspiring the next generation. And I will say, if you are considering starting an education pathway in your community, For the next school year, we are currently running a promotion that we're calling Spring Forward. You can learn all about it by going to our homepage. Uh, right below the big giant image, I think is Portland, because that's where our conference will be this summer. It says Spring Forward. You can learn about that promotion, but basically, our optional curriculum is available for purchase. It's a yearly subscription. You get it now. You're not paying for this year. You're paying for the next school year, but you get it early so that you can do the planning to launch a program in the 2026-2027 school year. Um, my colleague Lisa has been on the chat here. She just put the link for that if you would like to check that out. And I do not see Debbie any questions. So you and I must have done a great job at filling in all the potential questions they may have had. For all of you on the call today, thank you for being with us. We're going to let you go early. Please have a great afternoon. And if we can answer any questions, community@educatorsrising.org. Thank you.